This video is a replay of a trade I took today. Now, it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I am not a financial advisor, and trading entails risk. Just because I got these results today doesn't mean that I can get these every day, nor that you can. Remember, the entire premise of the investing project and the $1 million experiment is that I am not an expert, and yet I am learning how to do this. So for heaven's sake, don't just blindly copy me. Instead, find a mentor, someone who is an expert, and join their community. Pay for their mentorship. This approach has worked very well for me, and it likely will for you too. So use this video partly as education and partly as inspiration. After all, if I can learn this, you can too. Okay, this was a very busy day today. I took I took 9 trades, which is way more than I would normally take. I don't like to take 9 trades in a week. I took 9 trades in a day. This is the most I've ever taken. But I'll explain a little bit about why in a minute. But first of all, we had this big run up, as we can see here on the YM coming into today. Just an enormous melt up. It just looked unstoppable until it got to around this point here. It was about a quarter to 7, 6:44, so Pacific time. So about 14 minutes after market opened. And you could see on the 5-minute here that there's 3 wicks. It just couldn't get past this level here that aligned with the pre-market high. So I ended up putting in a sell order around 644, right about here. I'm going to play this back at full speed here. And I took the full size trade as well, which is something that I've been coaching myself to do. If you watched the last week's videos, I was on a bit of a rant about that. So I'm in with the full 100 points, and that was lots of room. Now, what I did here is because I wasn't really sure just how much. I mean, the YM had been very strong. So I was expecting there to be some sell-off. You can see that the NQ and the ES were selling off. I expected that YM would be a little harder to have sell off because it had been so strong compared to either one of the NQ or ES. So I ended up following this down with my stop. And not yet, obviously, it went a little further, but I didn't wait for it to automatically move to break even. I wish I had. And this is part of the reason why I took so many trades today. This was my very first trade. And once it had moved about that far, that right now I moved it manually to break even. And then I kept following down on the 5-minute. So I would follow it down based on the preceding 5-minute candle. Essentially what I did. Now, I'm going to let this play out as though I hadn't touched it and just let it. I wanted to see what it would do because I think it would have. I think it actually went to about here. I'm not exact. I stopped out at about 82.5 points times 8 contracts. So I made $450. So that was a good trade. Okay. So the very first one would have triggered. So I would have had $125 at that point if I had just put this trade on and gone to Home Depot, which is often what I do. That's when I get my best results, it seems. But I want to see how this would have played out if I had just let it run its course. And part of the reason why, like I said earlier, part of the reason I took so many trades today is that this sold off dramatically, and I was kicking myself to some degree as it sold off further and further, thinking, I should have been in it. Oh, I think I know what happened. I had wanted to split the contracts into 4 and 4, and somehow or other something happened and it didn't split properly. So I ended up trailing with just the full set of 8, and I think it took me out of that 82.5 points. But anyway, it is what it is. If I'd let it be and run the way it was supposed to, so far it would have taken the first 4 contracts for $125, and I'd still be in it, selling off. This was a pretty dramatic sell-off today. Let's see how far it would have gone. So I was watching the NQ, looking for the opportunity to get in. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pause this for a second because it was at 7:49 that I got long on the NQ. So let's keep going. It's 7:25 right now. And at various different points, I'm starting to look for, where does the long come in? So we're going to keep an eye on this. I always hate to miss my next entry. I'm busy narrating.
Target build.
Okay, there we go. If I had done that, that entire trade would have been a $723 trade. Instead, it was $450. So okay, it was less than three. It was $280 of lost opportunity. I actually was kicking myself because I thought it was a lot more that I had missed out on, but I guess not. In any event, it is the thing that precipitated me taking many more trades today, because instead of being one and done, just getting a really nice trade and then closing my account and getting on with my day, I actually stayed trading for a little bit longer than normal. So now it's 7:31. I need to. It's a 7:49 that I got into the MNQ, so I'll keep an eye on that. And and the way I got into the MNQ and the MES and the MYM, because I got into all three of them, they were not exactly at the same time, but there was overlap, and I want to explain my thinking behind that. Yeah, you look at this and think really, really selling off. Not only got to the previous day's low, but also got to the ATR, the average true range, full range, the full extension to the downside. So 749, 739 now. We'll just keep an eye on this. And we can see we got the first green candle on the ES starting to form here. Well, it did form. And I was actually briefly toying with the idea of getting in. In fact, I think I did get in. Was it 74.42? Is that right? You know what? I don't remember the order in which I did this, but I think I wouldn't be at all surprised if I put this first order in and just let it sit there. It's not the order in which it triggered, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's what I did. I'm going to just shrink that a bit so I can see it. You can see the MYM getting all the way down to the previous day's high and the pre-market low. Now we're at 7:44, so it's 5 minutes away from the NQ triggering. Here we have the first green candle forming on the NQ. Now, just so that I don't miss it, I got in at 28.050. So that would have been right just above. Yeah, I actually think I did not wait for the first green candle. I think what I did here is I waited. I wanted one candle over another, so I put the buy in on that 5 minute. And I think I kept just moving that lower because it was getting more and more extended, as you can see. And once it had reached the ATR, I thought, oh, for heaven's sake, this is as good as it's going to be. So I got into it. Now, here's a word about what I did. Oh, let me close this because I actually got in with only 2 contracts on the ES. And this flies directly in the face of what I was saying, what I was on a tilt about in last week's videos, because I was getting in too small for the quality of setup. Now, the reason I partly didn't know really. I mean, you never know whether this is the bottom or it's going to go lower, but it had been just a steady progression of red candles, like a huge steady progression. At some point, it's going to snap back heavily, but it also could go substantially lower. And, if it loses the low around here, it might drop quite far. So I didn't want to put on too big a position. So what I was thinking was, whichever one of these things triggers first, I'll hold off on the second one until the first one gets far enough along that I can move my stop manually to break even and then get into the second one. So at any point, I'm not taking on twice as much risk. I'm actually managing that risk a little bit more carefully because I would be getting to break even first. Now that doesn't really apply if I'm taking smaller positions. I could get into all of them at the same time, but this was my thinking, and that thinking persisted throughout the day as I recognized the need to get in with fuller size. And so we'll get to that. There were 9 trades today, so it's not like we have any lack of material to discuss. 28. Oh yeah, MYM was 52,364. So I want to get ready to put that position on too. 52. 364. Oh, we're not there yet. You know what? I'm going to put it on. Here's 367. I'll put it on anyway because we're just about there. And I think that ends up being, yeah, it ends up being where I got in. All right. Oh, but not with 8. I didn't get in with 8. I got in with, oh yeah, I did get in with 8. I did. However, as we will see, it didn't matter. 52,364. I got in with 8, but this is one of the ones that stopped out with even. Anyway, let's let this go. And the first one that triggers is going to be the MNQ here. At 749 coming up in a few seconds.
Bill.
All right, so we're in. I left the, no, I didn't. I think I moved this down to 125, give it a little bit more room.
Bill.
And now the ES is in. And the ES, I think I gave it a little bit more room too, as it came down here. So actually, I was in simultaneously with these. That's why I went with smaller size, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And you can see after 70 points in the right direction, NQ starts to trail the contract, and that's fair enough. And the ES, ended up, I don't quite remember when I moved this to even, but it would have been somewhere around, I don't exactly remember. And then now we're in here with the MYM. I left the MYM alone. And unfortunately, it was all looking really good. As you can see here, this looks really good. And what felt good about this is that I knew that the worst I could do was whatever the trailing thing here was on NQ. Worst I could do here was whatever the trailing on the ES, and I was broken even. With the MYM, I moved this manually to even. It's not quite even there. No? It's not showing up as exactly even. Anyway, I manually moved this to even. And at some point along the way here, this started selling off. And so what ended up happening was I got taken out at a plus 77 for the NQ, $154. I got taken out my first contract here. Look how close it came to triggering my first sell. But this got taken out, the trailer at plus 5, and then the other one at even. And MYM got taken out at even as well. And so this was I mean, it wasn't bad, but this was $154 plus 25, so $179 for this exercise in these two, and 0 for the MYM. Now I'm not going to show all of these things because I kind of did a similar thing at 856 and 9 and 909 with the MNQ, the MES, and the MYM. I did exactly the same thing. Only the thing that was different this time is I still did one contract of the NQ, but I went in with 6 of the ES, which is full size, and I went in with 8 of the MYM, which is full size. But I did that in a staggered way, like I was describing earlier. So I got in the first one, which was the NQ. Once I was able to move it to even, then I got in with the ES, and it just happened to be the one in a good position. And then as soon as it moved up, and I could reasonably move it to even, I didn't wait for the full 15 points. It was only like 6 or 7 points. I moved it to even so that I could get into the YM. I got in on that one and moved it to even, and had the same kind of an experience. I got $62 on the NQ. I got 0 on the ES. I got $30 on the MYM. $92. So there's a lot of activity for not very much payoff, but it was an interesting exercise. And then at 924, I took the Russell, the only one I had taken so far, the M2K, and made $42. So not a huge amount to show for it. Basically, another $130 something for that exercise, plus the $179 from the first part. The thing that was more interesting was at 1106. I managed to take the NQ after the third bounce, and this one made me sweat. I actually thought I'd really done a bad thing here. I thought, darn it, after I was sitting at around $760 of profit for the day, and I took I took 2 contracts of the NQ, which is the first time I've done that. And I did it on the third bounce, the third attempted bounce. So this one here, that we made the first 400 and no, that was something else. Where we made $144, and then this one here where I think I made $62, and then I got in and I was late. I was looking at the 15-minute here. I was on a call and I couldn't quite get to it. I wanted to get in right here above this 15-minute. I was late. I ended up getting in at what was it? 28113. So let me find that spot. And I'll take two contracts here just to illustrate. 28113, which was right about there. Okay, so you can see that is quite far removed from where I wanted to be, which is way down here. And you know, really, I missed that. I shouldn't have taken it. I shouldn't have taken it. That was an undisciplined decision on my part. However, I did take it, and you can see here this required a bit more risk, but I took that trade, and this one came perilously close. Actually, you know what? I think I ended up moving this just to the bottom of here so that I wouldn't be taking more than 100 handles of risk. I think I just left it there because this was sort of a swing low, and fair enough. And this is why it made me sweat. As soon as I took that trade, it started running into all sorts of trouble dealing with life, and I was worried about that. And I thought, you know, darn it, I don't know. The self-recriminations are always substantial when you end up doing something that you think is a miss. And I would have, look how close it came. You know, it would have been bad enough, you know, if it had stopped out regardless. But the very fact that I missed it and took it anyway, that's where the self-recriminations come from. Like, you know what? If I had been on time, I would have had an extra 30 or 40, 30 handles of room. I wouldn't have been so sorely tested. Anyway, so here we are. It worked, and we're at even here, and it starts to now trail this. Now, I think that I actually, if I remember correctly, I think that I actually moved this manually and trailed on the 5-minute bars. I think that's what I did here. I don't exactly remember. I ended up getting, yeah, I think I moved this manually. It came close. I got 77, and this is set at 150 right now. I think that I got to here, which is, it's not quite right. No, I would have taken it up to about here, I think. That looks more like 77. Maybe I got a little bit more. It might have been right about there. And I think somewhere along the way, I can't quite remember, it didn't get all the way to the 150. And it started to sell off. Yeah, here we are. And so it took me out at 80. It took me out at 80 for a plus $320 on the two contracts. So that actually was a decent little trade all in. But I was late getting into it. I very nearly lost $400 out of my 760. In the end, I made 320, so I ended up with 1,080. It was a good day, but not all good decisions. They were, you know, it worked out, but it could just as easily not have worked out. So anyway, interesting day.